Back in 1998, The Simpsons was already a cultural powerhouse. The show had built its reputation on mixing sharp humor with biting satire, making fun of politics, business, and pop culture in ways no other cartoon dared. But in one particular episode, they slipped in a joke so small that many viewers at the time barely noticed it. Yet 2 decades later, that single background detail would become one of the most famous examples of The Simpsons predicting the future. It was the moment the show joked that the iconic 20th Century Fox studio was a division of Walt Disney Co. At the time, the idea was absurd, meant to mock the growing consolidation of media companies. But in 2019, that joke became reality when Disney officially bought 21st Century Fox in a historic merger worth over $70 billion. Suddenly, what had once been just a gag became a prophecy. Fans were stunned, the internet exploded, and The Simpsons once again found itself at the center of conversations about how a cartoon could predict real-world events with such accuracy. To understand the significance of this moment, we need to revisit 1998. Back then, Disney and Fox were not only separate companies, but in many ways rivals. Disney was seen as the king of family-friendly entertainment, dominating animation, theme parks, and wholesome content. Fox, on the other hand, was known for edgier programming, riskier movies, and the kind of content Disney would never touch. The Simpsons itself was produced by Fox, and its rebellious satirical tone stood in contrast to the polished image of Disney. So when the writers decided to poke fun at the entertainment industry, they couldn't resist the idea of imagining Fox as a Disney-owned company. The joke appeared in the episode When You Dish Upon a Star, where we see a sign outside 20th Century Fox Studios, but instead of its usual logo, it reads, "A division of Walt Disney Co." For viewers in 1998, this was hilarious because it was unthinkable. Disney was the clean, safe, magical brand, while Fox was the edgy outsider. The idea of them merging felt like the ultimate clash of worlds, exactly the kind of absurdity The Simpsons thrived on. But what makes this gag extraordinary is what happened 21 years later. In 2019, after months of negotiations and legal battles, Disney officially purchased 21st Century Fox in one of the largest mergers in entertainment history. The deal brought together some of the most iconic movie franchises under one roof, from The Simpsons itself to Avatar, X-Men, and even the Alien films. The entertainment landscape changed overnight. Suddenly, that throwaway joke from 1998 wasn't just a joke anymore. It was a prediction that had come true with almost eerie precision. And just like with their Trump presidency prediction, fans rushed to dig up the old Simpsons clip and share it across social media, turning it into another viral phenomenon. The beauty of this prediction lies in its simplicity. It wasn't a big plot point or a dramatic scene. It was just a background sign, a visual gag that lasted only a few seconds. That's part of why it feels so magical. It's as if The Simpsons had planted a little Easter egg for the future, something no one paid much attention to until reality caught up with it decades later. This is what makes The Simpsons' so-called predictions so captivating. They blend into the show's humor so naturally that when they come true, they feel less like coincidence and more like hidden foresight. Of course, the writers never claimed to have predicted the future. Like with other predictions, the explanation is more logical than mystical. The Simpsons writers have always been tuned into the business world and the media landscape. Even in the late 1990s, the trend of mergers and acquisitions was becoming more common in Hollywood. Media companies were growing larger, swallowing up smaller studios to expand their empires. The idea of Disney buying Fox may have seemed like a far-fetched joke, but it wasn't completely out of nowhere. The writers knew how corporate America worked, and they exaggerated that trend for comedic effect. What no one could have guessed was that 2 decades later, the joke would become reality in such a spectacular way. Still, even with a rational explanation, the prediction feels uncanny. When news broke of the Disney-Fox merger, almost every article, tweet, and video about it mentioned The Simpsons. It wasn't just a business story anymore. It was a cultural moment tied to a cartoon that had supposedly seen it coming. Memes popped up everywhere, showing the 1998 episode side by side with news headlines from 2019. People joked that The Simpsons wasn't just a TV show, it was a crystal ball. And while we know it was really satire, the sheer accuracy of the joke gave it a legendary status. For The Simpsons as a brand, this was another reminder of its unique place in pop culture. Few shows have managed to stay relevant for over 3 decades, and part of The Simpsons' secret is its ability to reflect reality in exaggerated ways. Sometimes those exaggerations line up with what the future actually brings. And when they do, the results are unforgettable. The Disney-Fox joke is now part of a long list of famous Simpsons predictions. Alongside Donald Trump's presidency, smartwatches, autocorrect, and even the discovery of the Higgs boson particle. Each of these moments strengthens the show's reputation as a kind of accidental prophet. But beyond the prediction itself, there's something deeper here about how entertainment mirrors real life. The Simpsons wasn't just making a random joke in 1998. It was commenting on the growing power of giant corporations, the way creativity and media were being shaped by business decisions. That commentary has only become more relevant with time. In today's world, where a few massive companies control much of what we watch and consume, the joke about Disney owning Fox doesn't just feel accurate. It feels like a warning. It shows how satire can sometimes reveal truths that take decades to fully play out. The Disney-Fox merger itself had massive consequences for the entertainment industry. Disney gained control of blockbuster franchises, expanded its streaming power with Hulu, and became an even bigger force in Hollywood. For fans, it meant new possibilities, like X-Men and Deadpool joining the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But it also raised concerns about monopoly, diversity of content, and the dangers of too much power in too few hands. In that sense, The Simpsons joke wasn't just funny, it was a sharp observation of where the industry was headed. Disguised as humor, looking back, the prediction feels almost surreal. In 1998, the idea of Disney owning Fox was laughable. In 2019, it was reality. And in between those years, The Simpsons went from being a rebellious cartoon to a cultural icon that seemed to know more than it should. That's why fans love to revisit these predictions, not just because they're accurate, but because they make us think about how the future often unfolds in ways we least expect. And maybe, just maybe, The Simpsons has a knack for spotting those possibilities before anyone else. When the Disney-Fox merger was officially announced in 2019, the world of entertainment went into shock. Headlines declared it as one of the biggest deals in Hollywood history. For decades, 20th Century Fox had been a titan on its own, producing classics, shaping movie culture, and being a symbol of independence from Disney's squeaky clean empire. Suddenly, that golden searchlight logo, which millions of viewers associated with epic blockbusters, belonged to Disney. It was history in the making. Yet, for fans of The Simpsons, the biggest reaction wasn't about the billions of dollars or the future of the X-Men franchise. Instead, their minds instantly went back to 1998, the internet filled with screenshots of that one gag. The sign reading 20th Century Fox, a division of Walt Disney Co. It was as if the world needed to remind itself that The Simpsons had already seen this moment more than 20 years earlier. Social media platforms lit up. On Twitter, fans posted side-by-side images of the episode and the real-life news headlines. On Facebook and Instagram, memes spread like wildfire, often with captions like "The Simpsons did it again," or "How do they know everything before us?" YouTube creators rushed to make videos compiling all the times The Simpsons had predicted the future, and the Disney-Fox deal became one of the central highlights. It wasn't just a business story anymore. It was pop culture. It was prophecy. It was comedy turning into reality. And it showed once again why The Simpsons had such a powerful grip on the imagination of audiences around the world. The viral reaction also revealed something fascinating about how people view predictions. Of course, logically, the writers of The Simpsons didn't have a time machine. They weren't prophets. But fans didn't want to see it that way. They loved the mystery, the idea that this cartoon, famous for mocking society, somehow had insight into the deepest future of that society. People shared the clip with awe, half joking that The Simpsons must have writers from another dimension. It became more than just entertainment. It became a kind of legend. Every time a Simpsons prediction came true, it added fuel to this myth, that the show was a crystal ball hiding in plain sight. But while the meme culture made it funny, to choose, there was also a serious layer underneath. The Disney-Fox merger wasn't just a joke coming true. It was a reflection of how much the media world had changed. In 1998, the joke worked because it was absurd. Disney and Fox seemed like polar opposites. By 2019, the deal worked because media consolidation had become normal. Companies were buying up competitors, creating fewer but much more powerful giants. Disney itself had already purchased Pixar, Marvel, and Lucasfilm before the Fox deal. Each of these acquisitions expanded its reach, giving it control over beloved franchises like Toy Story, Star Wars, and The Avengers. By the time the Fox deal happened, Disney was no longer just a family entertainment company. It was the single most dominant player in Hollywood. So in a strange way, The Simpsons joke was less about seeing the future and more about capturing a trend before it fully took shape. Still, the uncanny accuracy was too perfect to ignore. The fact that the gag specifically said a division of Walt Disney Co. and not some other company made it unforgettable. Imagine if the sign had joked that Fox was owned by Coca-Cola or Microsoft. It would have been funny, but irrelevant. Instead, they hit the bullseye. And that precision is what gives this prediction its legendary status. It wasn't broad, it wasn't vague, it was specific, and it turned out exactly right. That's why it continues to fascinate audiences even today. The Simpsons itself benefited from the prediction in unexpected ways. After Disney's purchase of Fox, The Simpsons officially became a Disney property. This meant that the very show which had predicted Disney's takeover was now owned by Disney. That irony wasn't lost on fans. In fact, Disney leaned into it when they launched Disney Plus, their streaming platform. One of their biggest selling points was that The Simpsons would be available in its entirety on the service. The once rebellious anti-corporate show had now become part of the biggest corporate entertainment empire in the world. For some fans, this felt strange, almost like a betrayal of The Simpsons' outsider spirit. For others, it was proof of just how powerful the show's legacy had become that even Disney, the giant it once mocked, couldn't resist bringing it into their fold. This merger also opened up a new era of jokes and self-awareness for The Simpsons. In later years, the writers made meta-jokes about their new Disney ownership, poking fun at their place inside the empire. One short even featured The Simpsons characters alongside Star Wars and Marvel icons, making fun of the fact that they were now all part of the same Disney family. It showed how The Simpsons always had a way of turning reality into comedy, even when that reality involved themselves. What made this moment so entertaining for audiences wasn't just the accuracy of the prediction, but also the way it highlighted The Simpsons' role as a cultural mirror. Over the decades, the show has reflected everything from politics to technology to celebrity culture. And in doing so, it sometimes stumbled onto truths that only became obvious much later. The Disney-Fox gag is a perfect example. It was a reflection of 1990s media culture, a world where the idea of giant corporations swallowing each other was both absurd and inevitable. The joke captured that absurdity so well that when it became real, it felt like the show had unlocked the hidden future. For YouTube audiences, this kind of story is irresistible. It combines humor, nostalgia, and the thrill of mystery. Love the idea that a cartoon can outsmart reality. They enjoy revisiting the old clip, hearing the backstory, and then connecting it to the massive, world-changing deal that came decades later. It gives them a sense of being part of something larger, a kind of cultural in-joke that everyone understands. And because The Simpsons has so many of these predictions, the Disney-Fox moment doesn't stand alone. It's part of a larger pattern that fans obsess over. This is why YouTube compilations of Simpsons predictions rack up millions of views. Each new prophecy adds to the mythology, and the Disney-Fox deal is one of the crown jewels of that mythology. But beneath the entertainment, there's also a lesson. The Simpsons didn't predict the future through magic. They predicted it by paying close attention to the world around them, exaggerating trends and making jokes that were rooted in real dynamics. The writers were sharp observers of politics, business, and culture. Their genius was in spotting patterns and pushing them to their extreme for comedy. In 1998, they noticed the growing trend of media companies buying each other. They exaggerated it to the point of absurdity, Disney owning Fox. But what was absurd then became reality later. That's the power of satire. It can reveal the seeds of the future, even if it's meant as a joke. And maybe that's why The Simpsons' predictions feel so powerful. They remind us that the future isn't always as unpredictable as we think. The forces shaping our world, corporations, politics, technology, often move in directions we can already see. The Simpsons just has a way of turning those directions into jokes that, years later, look like prophecies. It's a reminder that comedy and truth are more closely connected than we often realize. Today, whenever people talk about the Disney-Fox merger, it's almost impossible not to mention The Simpsons. The prediction has become part of the story itself. News outlets, blogs, YouTubers, and fans all point back to that 1998 gag as if it were an essential piece of the puzzle. That's the magic of The Simpsons. A cartoon joke can live on for decades, shaping the way we interpret real history. The show may not have a crystal ball, but it has something just as powerful: the ability to see the absurd truths hiding in plain sight long before the rest of us do. So when fans say, "The Simpsons did it again," they're not just talking about a joke becoming real. They're celebrating the unique genius of a show that has entertained us, challenged us, and yes, even shocked us for more than 30 years. The Disney-Fox prediction is one of the best examples of that genius. It was quick, it was funny, it was absurd, and 2 decades later, it was absolutely true. That's why this prediction remains one of the most fascinating, eerie, and unforgettable moments in the long history of The Simpsons. And it's why, even now, audiences around the world continue to ask, how do they always seem to know the future?